We are in another week of our series, Flip the Script. We've been walking through the book of Matthew, and now we're in the Sermon on the Mount. And Jesus is literally, he's changing the way that we think, the way that we act. He's reversing the curse. He's taking the way we would approach Christianity, the way that we would think about our relationship with God, he's flipping it upside down. He's saying that the thing that I'm calling you to is a completely different kind of kingdom. It's a completely different kind of way of living. And so as we jump into the text, man, he's trying to show us something that's utterly different. And so, it's just to get practical for you. Have you ever made a decision in your life that you felt like shaped so much of your other life? Like you made a decision, let's take an example, I'm going to choose a diet and it's going to change who I am. So we had men's night this past Tuesday. By the way, if you're a guy in the room, you didn't show up, you should come to our next men's night. It's a ton of fun. Had a great time. Good time pickleball, good time of hanging out, good food, talking around Jesus. It was great. But while I was at the dinner table, I was talking to a guy, and he started telling me about a diet that he started. He started the carnivore diet. I don't know if you've heard of it. You eat only meat, basically eggs, some other things. So anyways, I'm just listening to him. I get curious about stuff like this. So he starts telling me about how amazing this diet is in his life. And he's like, bro, it is doing so much. I was like, tell me about it. He goes, man, I eat only meat. It's good meat. I eat like ribeye every day. He's dialed in, locked in, telling me all this stuff. He's so excited. He goes, man, I just have to, 4 weeks in, bro. He goes, I'm not just eating meat and enjoying my life. He goes, I have plantar fasciitis, gone. And I was like, okay. And then he starts going into all this stuff. I was expecting him to say, hey, man, I've been doing this, and I'm like 2 inches taller now. That's the vein he was going in. I was like, is this changing this guy's life? And I was expecting IQ plus 20, just kept going about it. And to the point where he was so excited in the room, the guys were looking at me, and I kept asking questions because I just like to get curious. They go, are you going to do it? I was like, no, I'm not going to do the carnivore diet. Anyways, he was excited. It was changing so much about who he was. Here, I'll give you another one. Because many of you, you're probably making decisions like this right now. 2025, what do I need to change my life, right? So here's another, home organization. So I am not crazy organized, right? But my wife is in that way. And so from Christmas to New Year's, I'm not kidding you, she went through every single room, every single closet, all the pantries, everything. Pulled it all out. Not alone, we helped her. My kids helped her. I got 4 daughters, if you don't know. But anyways, we're helping her. So pulling everything out, dividing it up. Here's the stuff that's going to go away. Here's the stuff that we need to buy again to replace. Here's how we're going to reorganize it. Every room, every closet, every pantry. And, it was a lot of work. I didn't love it, right? You know what I've been saying for the last 3 weeks? Honey, thank you so much. This is such a blessing. I can go into my closet now, and I go, oh, this goes here, right? I can put my shoes, or actually have a place for them now. It's amazing. And I'm sitting here going, this is changing my life in many ways. I show up, and I feel joy and peace and organization, and this goes here and there, and I don't have to think about it. It just goes there, right? It's changing so many things in the good way of my life. Here's the thing. This is exactly what Jesus is doing on the Sermon on the Mount. What is he doing? He's coming and he's saying, hey, listen, guys, I want you to pay attention. Remember, he's on a mountain and he's teaching to the people of God. He's the new and greater Moses. He's bringing the revelation of God, and he's coming with a word, and he's saying, hey, listen, this is a different kind of living, a different kind of kingdom. It's wholly different. It's going to transform you from the inside out. So he's coming in hot, and he's saying, man, this is a different way of living. So let me give you some examples. What the world, or what people may think, maybe you even think in this room is, man, my relationship with God looks like this. I need to be spiritual. I need to pray, journal, be present, be one with myself and the world. I need to meditate. That you think when it comes to your relationship with God, that's the mark. If you get there, you and God are in process. You are doing well. I'll give you another. Okay, my relationship with God looks like this. I need to do certain good things and not do certain bad things. If I would just try harder, push a little more, and get after, if I would just do certain things in my life, be kind to others, pay it forward, right? Show up in other people's life, be a helping hand, a loving person. If I would just do that a little more, if I could just tweak it a little, that's what walking with Jesus looks like. That's what Christianity is. That's what following a higher power or a God is. And Jesus is coming and saying, it's not enough. You can be as spiritual as you want. You can do as many good deeds as you want and not do the things that you think you shouldn't do. You can pray more. You can do all of it. It's never enough. It's not enough. This is a whole different way of living. This is what Jesus is painting the picture of. So here's the big idea for today. Jesus didn't change the law. He changes us. He's going to come in, Sermon on the Mount. He's going to be talking about the law. How do we live according to God? How do we follow God? He didn't come to change the law. He came to change us, change who we are. Okay? That's the picture. He's not going to abolish the law, but what do we do with it? What does it mean for us? That's where we are in Matthew chapter 5. So let's jump in. Again, Sermon on the Mount. He's on a mountain, new and greater Moses. He's coming to bring the revelation of God. Huge responsibility, but he's the only God's son. So let's jump in. Matthew 5:17. He says these words, "Don't think that I came to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill." There is so much in this verse. We could hang out here the rest of our time, but we're going to cover it and keep going, okay? So don't think that I came to abolish the law or the prophets. First of all, where does your mind go when you hear law? It's the first thing that comes to mind. Do you think rules, ordinances, commandments, officers, courts, lawyers, police officers, right? Like people showing up and giving you a speeding ticket. That's where you think law. Here's a list of things in my house. There's a list of things at my school, at my job, at my workplace, at whatever it is. These are the things that I do and don't do. The law, a judge, he's going to come and get me if I don't get it right. The law. That's the way we think. Here's the problem. We're importing our understanding, right? Western thought into this. The Jews of their time, first century, what do they think when they hear law and prophets? They don't go to rules first and foremost. It's a part of it for sure. It's the Ten Commandments. It's the law of Moses. It's the books of the Old Testament. But what's wrapped up? What's the bigger picture when they hear law? Covenant. A relationship with God. That God would come to humanity and say, I'm going to make a covenant with you. I'm going to make right what you did wrong, all of your sin, all of your brokenness, and I'm going to rescue you. I'm going to come to a man named Abraham. I'm going to say, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to provide for you land, blessing, nation, people groups, all this stuff. I'm going to show up in your life, and I'm going to redeem you. So he makes this covenant. God's people are walking in darkness, right? They're under slavery, under Pharaoh, and what does he do? He rescues them out from under the craziness of Egypt. He leads them into a wilderness, and he literally redeems them. He says, I've called you out of this crazy place, and I'm bringing you into a better land. And then they're going through all this hardship, and what does God do over and over again? He shows up and provides night and day, food, presence, healing, all this stuff of God showing up in their lives. So when they think law, when they think prophets, when they think the whole of the Old Testament, they think covenant. They think relationship with God. And there's obviously laws in that. So what is Jesus saying? He's coming in as the final declarer, the teacher, the greater Moses, right? What does he say? Don't think that I've come to abolish, eradicate, take away the law. No. I didn't come to do that. I didn't come to take away your covenant. I didn't come to take away your relationship. I didn't come to take away the law or the prophets. What did I do? I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. I came, right? We know the Old Testament pointed to one who would come, who would fully and finally rescue God's people, right? I didn't come to, get rid of it. I came to fulfill what you could never do. I came to fulfill what all of humanity is longing for, a right relationship with God. Holiness, purity, likeness of the Father. I did that. I didn't get rid of it. I fulfilled it. I completed it. I accomplished it through my Son on a cross, risen on the third day, in your place. Don't think I've come to get rid of it. I came not to abolish, but to fulfill. I came to rescue you. I came to save you. I came because I love you. I came to offer you mercy and forgiveness and hope and life, right? So, I just want to deviate for just a second. When I say law, how do we understand the law in our lives? And then we're going to jump back in the text. So these are just a few principles, okay? How should Christians view the law? Instead of debating which laws apply today, Jesus gives us a clearer understanding of the law. He's saying, I didn't come to abolish, I came to fulfill, I came to complete, I came to show up and make you right with God. So what do we know about the law? The law points to Jesus. The law points to Jesus. The law was never meant to lead us. The law was always meant to lead us to him, Galatians 3:24. Jesus didn't cancel it, he fulfilled it, Matthew 5:17. And so now, what do we know about the law? We know now know that we follow the person the law pointed to and not a rule book. We had dinner, this is like a week ago, and I got out a napkin. We were talking about the gospel with our kids. And I literally, I wish I could put it on the screen, I probably should have, but I drew like a line over and down and a line over and down, and there's this great gap, this separation between the two, okay? And I put a person over here representing mankind. I put a triangle representing the Trinity God. How do we get mankind, us, you girls, talking to my daughters, how do we get from here to a right relationship with God, to heaven, to wholeness, to life, right? So we were bringing the question, and I started drawing some lines out. I did this at Waffle House all the time, sharing the gospel with people. I'm from Georgia, get over it, okay? So, it was great. And so I'm drawing this out, and I go, listen, if you stop lying enough, how far do you think it'll get you? Do you think it'll get you to Jesus? Do you think it'll get you to the Father? No. If you do enough good, will it get you there? No. If you stop doing enough bad, will it get you there? If you are kind to people and loving to people, if you start praying and giving and doing all the things, if you show up every Sunday, will it get you to God? No. Right? And then what do you draw? It's the cross. The only one that makes us right with God the Father is Jesus. He was the bridge to the Father through his sacrifice and rising from the dead. He's our only hope. Not spirituality, not doing good things, Jesus. He saves us. He's the only one, the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through him. Don't miss that, right? So the law points to Jesus. Number 2, how should Christians view the law? Jesus transforms obedience. Righteousness isn't about checking boxes, it's about a heart shaped by God. That's what it is. The Spirit now leads us, right? And shapes our hearts as we live out God's will. It's the Spirit of God working in and through us that changes who we are. That's the picture. Our obedience isn't about following rules. It's about living in relationship with Jesus. Again, first century Jew. It's not just do and don't. It's covenant. It's relationship. He didn't come to get rid of the relationship. He came to fulfill it in himself. Jesus is the guy, right? And then last one, love is the new way. Now, don't hear love wins, and you're all going, what's Clint going? Where's he headed, bro? Like, what are you doing? That's not what I'm saying. It says in John chapter 14, what does he say? I'm giving you a new command. Love one another as I have loved you, and so sacrifice my life for you. It's a new command in one sense, and in other ways it's not. What is he saying? He's referring to Deuteronomy chapter 6 in the Old Testament, right? Love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. So what is he saying? A new command. He's saying, man, know this, understand this. I have so loved you. I have so redeemed you. I've changed you from the inside out. I've sacrificed everything in your place. Now go and love like me. Now go with the power of the Holy Spirit. This new kind of love, this transformed heart, transformed mind kind of living. Go and love. It's a new way. Instead of legalism, we live out grace, mercy, and truth, Galatians chapter 6, verse 2. The goal isn't external performance, it's whole life transformation, which is what Jesus is getting at here. I haven't left you. It's still about relationship. There's a whole different kind of kingdom. There's a righteousness outside of yourself. So I want to get practical for just a second. What does it have to do with you? Right? Think about your life. Maybe you're here and you don't have a relationship with Jesus and you need to reconsider the approach, the motivation, and the direction. Maybe you're here and you're a Christian and you've been living as if you're not a believer in the way that you approach God to get right with Him. Even though you believe, even though He's changed you, you're getting it off. So here's some questions to think through. Has the law, the holistic law, not just rules, do's and don'ts, has the law led you to Jesus? Or are you still trying to measure up on your own? Just let that sit in for a second. Like, think of it this way. I'm going to give you the second question. Do you obey out of love for God or just to check a box? I'm going to lean in. When you came today, are you checking off a box? When you served today, are you checking off a box? When you gave last week, are you checking off a box? Are you doing out of the love wrought in Jesus Christ on a cross, crucified, risen on the third day kind of living? Where He loves you more than you can imagine. It gives you this new heart, this new desire, this new way of living, and you can't help but do it. Maybe you're not there every day, but every now and then you get that gut check of, I'm not going to go through the motions. I'm going to pursue Jesus because He pursued me. He's changed me. I want to be changed, and I want to change others. That's the kind of living. It's not checking off a box. You are so loved, man. I want to love others. When I came to know Jesus, I was so impacted by His grace. I wanted everyone to know about His grace. I wanted everyone to know the truth. I wanted everyone to find out who and how to follow this King, right? Last question. Where is God calling you to trust Him instead of just following rules, right? It's about relationship. You have things that you're not supposed to do and you are supposed to do. But where is He calling you? I'm not just telling you to show up. I want you to trust me. I want you to walk with me. This is a relational covenant with God. Jonathan Pennington, if you're going to read one book on the Sermon on the Mount, it's a little heady and long, so I'm going to give you that. But it's Jonathan Pennington on the Sermon on the Mount. It's fantastic. He says this: Jesus is neither abolishing nor merely reaffirming the law. Rather, He is teaching that the law, rightly understood, leads. Where does it go? Where does it go? It leads to deep, whole person righteousness that characterizes the kingdom. It's a whole different kind of living. It's not checking off a box. It's not spirituality. It's not doing a couple of good things, tweaking your life, self-help kind of measure. It's a whole new life. A whole new life. Verse 18. So he's going to keep going, right? And I don't know if I didn't tell you this yet. This is probably the hardest passage to interpret, maybe in all of Matthew, but for sure in the Sermon on the Mount, okay? So there's going to take some interpretation here. I'm going to tell you where I land and all of that. So he says, verse 18, "For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away," interesting language, "not the smallest letter or one stroke of a letter will pass away from the law until all things are accomplished." Immediately, what just comes off the page? Heaven and earth pass away. So I just want to give you my lens when I read Scripture. Theologically, biblically, whole canon of Scripture, when I read the final days, when Jesus returns, we are not going to have this earth gone and a new earth. Instead, what I believe the Scriptures are saying is that we will have a recreated earth. The current earth that we are on right now, it is broken and sinful, and when Jesus returns, He's going to recreate it in a way that I don't understand, the way that I don't know, right? Sin, dross, brokenness, suffering, pain, gone. Gone. It's a new creation and a new heaven, and it's heaven on earth, so to speak, as we would sing and read and talk about. So when I interpret this, my lens automatically goes there. So I'm just letting you know where my head's at. So let's read it again. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, I immediately go, I think he's not being literal, he's being symbolic spiritually, I think. But let's keep reading and just to check in, okay? So for truly I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or one stroke of the letter of the law will pass away from it, until all things are accomplished. Is that Jesus dying on a cross, rising from the dead, or the second coming? I believe it's the first. What is Jesus trying to say? I didn't come to wipe away the law. I didn't come to eradicate it. I came to fulfill it. And when it's fulfilled, when it's accomplished, heaven and earth will pass away. The old covenant, the Mosaic law, the old way of living, that kind of life is going to pass away. And a new kind of living, a new kind of kingdom. Jeremiah chapter 31, I've given you a new heart, a new way to live, one that actually gives you the desires to live it out. That kind of age, the age of the church, from the time that Jesus rose from the dead till the time that he returns, that moment, that time, that space, right? So that's what he's talking about, I believe. Let's keep going. Verse 19. Therefore, in light of the fact that when Jesus rises from the dead and we are in the age of the church, okay? Therefore, anyone and everyone, whoever breaks one of the least of these commands and teaches, I think this is key, and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does and teaches these commands, I would say the teachings of Jesus, okay, will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Again, hard to interpret. What is he actually saying? Let me just paint the picture. In the kingdom of heaven, right? Is there going to be some who are like, man, you're in the kingdom and you're a little less than, right? You're the least of these, but I'm glad you're here, bro, right? And then there's going to be some really great people, and they're awesome, and let's, woo, for them, right? Is that the picture? Is Jesus saying that these people who don't obey his commands and teach others to do the same, that they just barely make it in, right? Is that the picture? Or is he saying something else? Let's look at verse 20, because I think Jesus is setting us up for this. And I think he's got his answer here. Look at this. For I tell you, unless your righteousness surpasses that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you will never, ever get into the kingdom of heaven. Who are the scribes and the Pharisees? Those who taught outward observance according to the law to be right with God. Right? They didn't just live it, they taught it. Who's he talking about? I think he's talking about the Pharisees. And he's saying if you don't have a righteousness, an alien righteousness, a better way of living, a different kind of kingdom, guess what? You aren't a part of the kingdom of heaven. You are the least. You didn't make it. You're not in. Everyone who follows Jesus and teaches others to do the same. Matthew chapter 28, I'm calling everyone to make disciples of all nations, baptizing them and teaching them the way that I live, everything that I have observed. This is normal living for Jesus. This is being a part of the kingdom of God. This is what a disciple looks like. So he's saying, everyone who teaches something else and does something else, trying to observe religiosity and outward appearance and performance, you've missed it. You've missed it. You're like the Pharisees and the scribes. You're not in the kingdom. You've missed it. There's a different kind of way that Jesus is talking about. So that's the way I understand. I'm going to go back to verse 19. Let's read it again. Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commands and teaches others to do, I would say, like the Pharisees, the same will be called least in the kingdom. They don't get in. They don't make it. It's not a barely, I'm on the bottom totem pole in heaven. You're not in. Okay? But whoever does and teaches these things, the teachings of Jesus, Matthew 28, true disciples, true followers, people who understand that their righteousness doesn't make them right with God. It's only through Jesus. Right? Will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. So if you try to do this on your own, apart from trusting in Jesus, you fall short, right? Verse 20, I want to dial in a little more on the scribes and the Pharisees, okay? For I tell you, unless your righteousness your kind of living, the things that you practice, the way that you approach Jesus and God and the kingdom and everything. If it doesn't surpass, if it's not greater than that of the scribes and the Pharisees, I'm going to stop there. Let's just talk about them for a little bit more. I know many of you have heard who they are, so let's dial in. The scribes, they start at a very young age, and they are trained in the way of the law in a very professional sense. They are pros. They literally, this is their job. And so from beginning as a child, they're essentially grown up into this, taught this, led in the way of this. They are professionals. They are paid for this. They are dialed in on it. They are known as experts of the law. They are the elite. They're like lawyers of the law of God, okay? So they are trained professionally in that sense. Their ordination isn't received till age 40. So when they hit that and they are called a scribe, everybody goes, if you have any interpretation issues, anything with the law, they're the guy. Go talk to them. They're professionals. That's the scribes. Pharisees, they are lay leaders, but they know the scriptures almost or just as well as the scribes. They're just not paid for it. It's not a professional thing. But everybody would look up to the Pharisees, and in a very specific way. Not just do you know the law, they were practicals. They were very practical about their faith, about the way that they taught. So they didn't just follow and observe the law of Moses. What did? They added a whole bunch of commands and traditions on top of it. 280 of them or something crazy. So not only are they obeying Moses and the law of the Old Testament, man, they're dialing in and locked in at doing all this other stuff. And so when people said, how do I live for God? Pharisees are the one. Let's ask them. They're the pros of this. So what is Jesus doing? He says, if your righteousness doesn't surpass these two groups, you don't get in the kingdom ever. And everybody in the room is going, what? These are the holiest. They understand the scriptures in ways that we don't. What are you talking about, Jesus? And he's like, don't miss this. It's not about you and your righteousness. It's a whole different kind of living. Right? That's the picture. They obeyed, but they missed it. For me, like when I read that, I don't know if there was people when they were listening to this, but maybe you're in the room and you're going, man, it's like a competition. I got to beat the Pharisees and the scribes. If you're thinking that way, the way I would think probably, I just got to be better than the guy next to me. I just have to be better than the in-law that's in my family. I have to be better than the uncle who's crazy. I have to be better than the person on my team. I have to be better than whoever it is behind me or before me. That's not the goal. And that's not what Jesus is saying. Surpassing is a whole different kind of living. It's not a competition. It's a surrender. It's laying down your life, right? Jesus says it this way, if you want to gain your life, you have to lose it in order to follow me. You have to give up everything. It's no longer your way. It's my way, right? So Jesus says, hey, listen, if your righteousness doesn't surpass it, you've missed it. You'll never enter the kingdom. I just want to say this. There's a teaching going on right now. It's called, I don't remember the exact name, but it's basically Christian universalism. That everybody eventually gets in because somehow Jesus works it out. It's not true. He says those who don't have a different kind of way of thinking and living, who don't have a new heart, they will never get in. It's not spirituality. It's not everybody gets in. It's Jesus. It's Jesus. I just want to make that clear. So Jonathan Pennington, here's another quote from him. I think he sums it up well. True righteousness is not about doing more than the Pharisees. It's about a different kind of righteousness altogether. One that is deeper, whole person oriented, and leads to human flourishing. That's what righteousness is. That's what kingdom living is. It's a matter of the heart. It's where everything changes. Righteousness with a different bent, a new motivation, a new desire, a new life. So the question is, I want you to really process this. I know we've been burning through a few hard verses. Does your righteousness surpass that of the Pharisees? Think about that. Because here's the thing. You have to go beyond outward performance. You have to go beyond going through the motions. You have to go beyond checking boxes. You need Jesus. He's the guy. He's the answer. He's the way. And there's no other way. So again, Jesus didn't change the law. He changes us. He changes you. I want to get practical for you. Do you have faith? Do you believe in Jesus? That it's not your righteousness, but it's his righteousness that saves you. That you would confess that you fall short, but that Jesus is enough. That he actually came and lived a perfect life that you could never live, died the death that you deserve, and rose from the dead on the third day. That he is the guy. Do you have faith? A faith that changes your perspective, your schedule, your bank account, your purpose, your pursuits, your everything. Your everything. That's the kind of kingdom Jesus is talking about. It changes all of you. It's not a tweak, right? Do you have a relationship with Jesus? Do you talk to him? Do you spend time with him and his people? That's kingdom living. That's what Jesus is talking about. Jesus didn't change the law. He changes us. He changes you. So we're about to pray in a minute, but I want to give you a moment in prayer on your own to surrender. Maybe you're in the room and, man, you thought you had a relationship with Jesus, but after hearing this, you've been going about it all the other ways, and you want to surrender to him today, that you would do that. Maybe you're in the room and you have a relationship with Jesus and you've just gotten off course and you want to surrender and say, God, I'm sorry. I've been checking off the box. I've been going through the motions. I've been doing whatever. And it's really about you. And it's you loving me and changing me from the inside out, that you would surrender that to him and say, I want a greater righteousness. I want to live faithfully for you. Just go ahead and take a moment, pray to the Lord, and I'll close this out. Father, thank you for your son. Thank you that he didn't come to take away our relationship with you, but instead he came to fulfill it and complete it and to make a way to be right with you, God. Thank you for Jesus. Thank you for his sacrifice. Thank you for his perfection, for his righteousness that he imputes to us, that he gives to us, that he changes us from the inside out. God, I pray that as a church, God, as a local body of believers in this room, we just surrender to you. And we say, not our way, not our will, not our goodness, but your way, your will, and your righteousness. We want to live in your kingdom. We don't want to make our own. So God, help us to do that, not just individually, but corporately. Send us, God. Send us out to our neighbors to share this love, to share this message, this hope, this life. God, we love you. We praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.